the twisted tale of my cheating fiancé's bachelor party. Imagine finding out your perfect fiancé is living a scandalous double life just days before your wedding. That's my story. I'm Eliza Harper, and what you're about to hear is a true tale of love, betrayal, and the journey to finding myself again. This isn't just any story. It's a raw, unfiltered dive into the deepest parts of my heart and soul. From the dizzying heights of love to the crushing blow of deception, join me as I navigate the chaotic twists and turns of a relationship that turned my world upside down. This is the twisted tale of my cheating fiancé's bachelor party. The day I received those photos was the day my fairy tale romance turned into a nightmare. Hi, I'm Eliza Harper, and this is the shocking beginning of a journey that upended my life. It was supposed to be a time of joy, but instead, I found myself staring at undeniable proof of my fiancé's betrayal. Every image, a stab to my heart, and they were just the beginning. As I pieced together the lies, my dream wedding crumbled around me. This is the raw, unfiltered story of love, deception, and a wedding that was never meant to be. Chapter 1. Wedding Prep Gone Wrong. The photos that changed everything. You know, I never imagined myself in the middle of a story like this. Not me, Eliza Harper, the one who always played it safe, who believed in fairy tales and happy endings. But here I am, sitting in my little apartment surrounded by wedding catalogs and fabric swatches, my heart racing and my hands shaking. And it's all because of a package. A simple, unassuming package that turned my world upside down. It was just another ordinary Thursday, or so I thought. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and I was humming along to some love song on the radio, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to hit me. I was in the thick of wedding preparations, you see. Michael, my fiancé, or should I say, ex-fiancé now, and I were due to get married in just a few weeks. Everything was nearly perfect. The dress, the venue, our families buzzing with excitement. Michael, he was my dream guy, charming, handsome, with a smile that could light up the darkest room. I loved him. I really did. But that day, that Thursday, everything changed. There was a knock at the door. A delivery man handed me a package, no return address, just my name written in a scrawled, hurried handwriting. Curiosity piqued. I tore it open, expecting maybe a late wedding gift or some forgotten order. Instead, what I found inside made my heart stop. Photos, dozens of them. And not just any photos. Pictures of Michael, my Michael, at his bachelor party. But these weren't innocent snapshots of a night out with the boys. No, these were different. In every photo, he was with another woman. Not just with her, but, close. Too close. The kind of closeness that screamed betrayal. There were texts, too. Messages that made my stomach churn. Words of love and desire. But not for me. For her. Whoever she was. I remember sitting there on the floor, the photos spread out around me like pieces of a shattered dream. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. Was it a joke? A cruel prank? But deep down, I knew. The truth was staring me right in the face, and I couldn't look away. The worst part, the absolute worst part, was the timing. This was supposed to be the happiest time of my life. Our wedding was just around the corner. Invitations sent, vows written, a future planned. And now? Now it was all crashing down around me. I felt like I was in one of those dramatic romance novels, the kind with torrid affairs and heart-wrenching betrayals. Except this was my life, not some fictional characters. And it hurt. God, it hurt so much. So what did I do? I cried. I screamed. I threw things. I went through all the stages of grief in the span of an hour. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. That was a long way off. The images haunted me, each one a dagger in my heart. Michael's face, his touch, our memories together, they all felt tainted now. But amidst the storm of emotions, a plan began to form. I needed answers. I needed to know why. Why he did it. Why he lied. Why he shattered our future together. And I knew just the place to confront him. My bachelorette party. It was happening in 2 days. Perfect timing, right? The party was supposed to be a celebration, a night of fun and freedom. But now, it was going to be my battleground. I was going to confront Michael face to face. I needed to see his eyes when he tried to explain this away. I needed to know if there was any love left, any shred of the man I thought I was marrying. And so, as I sit here, surrounded by the ruins of my once perfect life, I can't help but feel a spark of something. Anger, determination, maybe a bit of both. I'm not going to be the victim in this story. No, I'm going to take control. I'm going to find out the truth, no matter how painful it might be. But as I plan my confrontation, as I steel myself for what's to come, there's a part of me that's terrified. Terrified of what I might learn, of what it might mean for my future. This isn't just about a ruined wedding anymore. It's about me, Eliza, and who I am going to be after all this is over. So, here I am, on the eve of what might be the most important night of my life, a night that could change everything. Again. And the only thing I know for sure, nothing will ever be the same.
This is chapter 1 of a 6-part short story. If you don't have time to watch or listen to all 6 chapters right now, why not subscribe to the Romance Diaries on YouTube and check back later, or simply stay tuned for chapter 2.
Imagine having your bachelorette party crashed with revelations that shatter your world. I'm Eliza, and that's exactly what happened to me. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, a friend of my fiancé, Michael, brought secrets to light that were darker than anything I could have imagined. As the night of celebration turned into a whirlwind of shocking truths, I realized my life with Michael was built on lies. This chapter isn't just about betrayal. It's about the gritty truth of a love that was never really there. Chapter 2. Fiancé's friend crashes my bachelorette party with shocking revelations. You never think it's going to happen to you, do you? That your life will turn into some sort of sordid drama, the kind you only hear about in hushed whispers or see in those late-night movies. Yet here I was, Eliza Harper, living it. Living a nightmare. So, the bachelorette party. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, my last hurrah as a single woman. The venue was this chic little club downtown, all velvet ropes and sparkling lights. My friends were all there, decked out in their party best, ready to dance the night away, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I tried to put on a brave face, to lose myself in the music and the laughter. But it was like I was in a daze, going through the motions. Every clink of a glass, every burst of laughter was a reminder of the deceit lurking in the shadows of my upcoming wedding. And then, in the midst of all the revelry, he showed up. Tom, one of Michael's closest friends. I hadn't invited him, of course. Why would I? But there he was, looking as out of place as a snowstorm in July. I remember feeling this jolt of fear when I saw him. Why was he here? What did he want? I could tell he was nervous, shifting from foot to foot, his eyes darting around the room. When he finally made his way over to me, I braced myself. I didn't know what he was going to say, but I knew it wasn't going to be good. Eliza, he started, and his voice was so full of regret it almost made me feel sorry for him. Almost. I need to talk to you. It's about Michael. I could feel my friend's eyes on us, curious, concerned. I ushered Tom to a quiet corner, away from prying ears. And then he told me. He told me everything. It turns out the photos were just the tip of the iceberg. Michael's bachelor party had been a wild affair, all right. But it wasn't just a one-night mistake. Tom revealed that Michael had been seeing this other woman for months. Months! While he was with me, planning a wedding with me, he was living a double life. My head was spinning. This wasn't just a case of cold feet or a drunken mistake. This was a full-blown affair. Betrayal upon betrayal. Tom kept talking, kept apologizing for not telling me sooner, for being a part of the whole sordid mess. He said he couldn't stand by and watch me marry Michael without knowing the truth. A part of me wanted to scream at him, to blame him for my heartache. But what was the point? The damage was done. The rest of the night was a blur. I excused myself from the party early, muttering something about not feeling well. My friends were concerned, of course, but how could I tell them? How could I admit that my fairy tale was crumbling around me? I spent the night alone in my apartment, the silence suffocating me. The laughter and music of the party seemed like a distant dream. All I could think about was Michael's betrayal, the lies, the deceit. And Tom's words echoed in my head, a constant, painful reminder of the reality I was facing. As dawn broke, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't marry Michael. I couldn't stand before my family and friends, before myself, and vow to spend my life with a man who had so thoroughly deceived me. But the thought of canceling the wedding, of admitting to everyone that my relationship was a lie, it was overwhelming. The shame, the embarrassment, the pity. It was almost too much to bear. And yet, there was a part of me, a small but fierce part, that felt this sense of relief. Relief that I knew the truth before it was too late. Relief that I wouldn't be walking into a marriage built on lies. So, there I was, at the crossroads of my life. The path I thought I was on had vanished, and now I had to choose a new direction. A direction that was terrifying and uncertain. But mine. All mine. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision on my shoulders. It was time to face the music, to face Michael. It was time to end this charade once and for all.
This is Chapter 2 of a 6-part short story. If you are enjoying this story, please show us some love by hitting the like button. Please stay tuned for Chapter 3.
The man I was about to marry was a stranger. My name is Eliza, and this is the heart-wrenching realization I came to. In this chapter, I grapple with the knowledge that my fiancé, the man I loved, was living a lie. The struggle wasn't just about his betrayal. It was about facing the daunting reality of my future without him. Every dream, every plan, shattered by infidelity. Join me as I navigate through the chaos of a broken engagement and the daunting question of whether I can ever trust again. Chapter 3. The man I am about to marry is a cheat and I don't know what to do. There's something about the stillness of the morning that makes everything seem more real, more raw. As I sat there in my apartment, the first light of dawn creeping through the curtains, it all hit me like a freight train. Michael, the man I was about to marry, the man I thought I knew, was a cheat. And here I was, caught in the wreckage of what I thought was a perfect relationship. It's funny, isn't it? How your mind tries to piece together the broken fragments of the past, searching for signs you might have missed. I found myself replaying every moment, every conversation we'd had. Looking back, there were signs, little red flags that I had chosen to ignore. The late nights at work, the sudden business trips, the way he guarded his phone like it held state secrets. I had trusted him completely, and in doing so, I had blinded myself to the truth. I felt like a fool, a cliché. The unsuspecting fiancé, blissfully planning a wedding while her partner lived a double life. It was like I was starring in some tragic romance novel, the kind where love is a battlefield and trust is a casualty. As the morning wore on, the weight of my reality settled on my shoulders. I had to face the fact that the life I had been planning, the future I had envisioned with Michael, was over. It was time to make a decision that would change the course of my life. I thought about confronting Michael, demanding answers. But what was the point? The evidence was irrefutable. His betrayal wasn't a mistake. It was a choice he made, again and again. No explanation could erase that, No apology could mend the broken trust. So, what did I do? I did the only thing I could. I picked up the phone and called off the wedding. It was the hardest phone call I've ever had to make. My voice shook as I spoke to the wedding planner, canceling the venue, the flowers, the band. Each cancellation was like a nail in the coffin of my shattered dreams. But as I hung up the phone, I felt this strange sense of liberation. It was as if a weight had been lifted off my chest, allowing me to breathe again. I was free from the lies, the deceit, the pain of loving someone who wasn't who I thought they were. The rest of the day was a blur of phone calls and text messages, explaining to friends and family, dealing with their reactions, their shock, their sympathy. It was overwhelming, but necessary. I needed to close this chapter of my life, no matter how painful it was. As night fell, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by remnants of a wedding that would never happen. The dress hanging in the closet, the invitations stacked on the table, the ring burning a hole in my pocket. They were all just ghosts of a future that had vanished. And in the silence of my apartment, a realization dawned on me. I didn't know what to do next. My life, once so certain, was now a blank canvas. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. I had the chance to start over, to rebuild my life on my terms. But amidst the hope of a new beginning, there was a lingering fear. A fear of trusting someone again, of opening my heart only to have it broken. Could I ever trust another man? Could I ever let myself be vulnerable again? The thought of it was daunting, almost paralyzing. As I drifted off to sleep, a million thoughts raced through my mind. What would tomorrow bring? How would I face the world, knowing that the man I had loved was a cheat? How would I rebuild my life from the ashes of my broken heart? I didn't have the answers, not yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I was going to find out who I was without Michael, and that journey, however uncertain, was something I had to face. Alone.
This is Chapter 3 of a 6-part short story. If you would like to experience your own real-life romance, possibly not exactly like this one, please visit our sponsors in the description below. Stay tuned for Chapter 4.
Confronting a cheating fiancé is a moment no woman should ever face. I'm Eliza, and I lived that moment. The day I confronted Michael changed everything. It was a collision of heartache and revelation, a showdown where truths were laid bare and illusions shattered. In this chapter, witness the raw, unfiltered confrontation that marked the end of a love I once thought was unbreakable. This isn't just a story of confrontation, it's a tale of finding strength in the ruins of betrayal. Chapter 4. The day I faced my cheating fiancé, the confrontation that changed everything. The day I decided to confront Michael was a day I'll never forget. It was like walking into a storm, knowing you're about to be hit by a wave, but not knowing how hard it's going to knock you down. I felt a strange mix of fear and anger churning inside me as I drove to his place. My hands were trembling, my heart was racing, but there was also this sense of purpose, of needing to face the man who had turned my life into a lie. As I stood outside his door, I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This was it, the moment of truth. I knocked, my heart pounding in my chest. When Michael opened the door, the look on his face said it all. He knew why I was there. He tried to speak, to explain, but I cut him off. I didn't come here to listen to his excuses or his apologies. I came for closure. I showed him the photos, the texts. I watched his face fall, watched him struggle to find the words. But what could he possibly say? The evidence was right there, in black and white. The confrontation was intense. Every word he said just fueled my anger. He talked about mistakes, about being confused, about not wanting to hurt me. But it was all just noise, empty words trying to fill a void he had created. I asked him the questions that had been haunting me. Why? How could he do this to me? To us? His answers were a mix of apologies and justifications. He talked about feeling trapped, about needing an escape. But none of it made sense. None of it justified what he did. As I stood there, listening to him, I felt this profound sense of sadness. Sadness for the love I had lost, for the future we would never have. But there was also this growing sense of strength within me. The strength to walk away from someone who had betrayed me so deeply. The conversation, if you can call it that, was going nowhere. It was clear that Michael and I were over. There was nothing left to salvage, no trust left to rebuild. So, I did the only thing I could. I walked away. As I left his place, I felt a range of emotions washing over me. Relief, that it was finally over. Anger, at him for betraying me, and at myself for not seeing it sooner. But more than anything, I felt free. Free from the lies, the deceit, the pain. Driving away from his house, I realized that this confrontation was not just about facing Michael. It was about facing myself. It was about acknowledging my worth, my value. I deserved better than a man who would betray my trust, who would break my heart. The road ahead of me was uncertain. I didn't know where I was going, or what I was going to do. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own destiny. I was no longer defined by my relationship with Mikhail. I was just Eliza, and that was enough.
This is Chapter 4 of a 6-part short story. We would love to know what you think of the story, so please let us have your comments and feedback. Stay tuned for Chapter 5.
Canceling a wedding is like mourning a future that will never be. I'm Eliza, and this is the aftermath of my broken engagement. The decision to not marry Michael was only the beginning. What followed was a journey of self-discovery, of picking up the pieces in a world that had been turned upside down by betrayal. In this chapter, I share the raw emotions of canceling a wedding, facing friends and family, and the struggle to redefine my identity. This is about rising from the ashes of a dream that turned into a nightmare. Chapter 5. I couldn't go through with the wedding. After I found out my fiancé cheated. In the aftermath of confronting Michael, there's this strange calm that settles over you. It's like after a storm, when the rain has stopped and the world is eerily silent. That's how I felt in the days following our confrontation. Numb, but with a sense of clarity I hadn't had in weeks. The decision to cancel the wedding was made. The confrontation had happened. But now came the hard part, dealing with the fallout. I had to face my family, my friends, and explain why there would be no wedding. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Telling my parents was particularly tough. They had been so excited for the wedding, so proud. I could hear the disappointment in their voices, even though they tried to hide it. They were supportive, of course, but I knew they were heartbroken. Heartbroken for me, for what could have been. My friends were a mix of angry and supportive. Some couldn't believe what Michael had done, others said they had always had their doubts about him. But they all rallied around me, offering their love and support. It was comforting, but it also made the loss feel more real, more final. Then there were the practicalities to deal with, the cancellation of the wedding venue, the caterers, the florist, the band. Each phone call was a reminder of the dream wedding that would never happen. And the dress, my beautiful wedding dress, now just a painful reminder of what should have been. In those days, I felt like I was living in a fog. I went through the motions, doing what needed to be done, but my heart wasn't in it. I was grieving, not just for the relationship, but for the future I thought I was going to have. And amidst all the chaos and the heartache, there was this underlying sense of embarrassment. I felt like everyone was looking at me with pity, whispering behind my back. The canceled wedding was now public knowledge, and I felt exposed, vulnerable. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to see things in a different light. Yes, I was heartbroken, but I was also resilient. I had faced the worst kind of betrayal, and I was still standing. I was starting to see the end of the relationship not just as an ending, but as a beginning of a new chapter in my life. I started to focus on myself, on my passions and interests. I reconnected with old friends, took up new hobbies, started going to the gym. It was like I was rediscovering who I was before Michael, who I was meant to be. And slowly, I began to heal. The pain and the heartache didn't disappear overnight, but each day it got a little easier. I started to smile more, to laugh more. I began to feel like myself again. But there was still this lingering question in my mind. Could I ever trust another man? After what Michael did, the idea of opening my heart to someone else was terrifying. I wasn't sure if I could do it, if I could ever let myself be that vulnerable again.
This is Chapter 5 of a 6-part short story. If you are enjoying this story, why not subscribe to the Romance Diaries, where you can enjoy other stories of love, romance, heartache, revenge, cheating and betrayal, and by clicking on the notification bell at the same time we can let you know every time we bring out a new video. Please stay tuned for the final chapter, Chapter 6.
Can you find love and trust after a devastating betrayal? My name is Eliza, and this is the final chapter of my story. After the heartbreak of a canceled wedding and the revelation of Michael's infidelity, I was left with the pieces of my shattered heart and the daunting task of rebuilding my life. But in this chapter, I discover that healing is possible and love can be found in unexpected places. Join me as I navigate the path of healing and the possibility of opening my heart to love once more. This is a story of hope, resilience, and the power of a second chance at love. Chapter 6. Betrayed by my fiancé. Just days before our wedding. Can I ever trust another man? As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the wound left by Michael's betrayal began to heal, albeit slowly. It's strange how life works, isn't it? One day you're planning a wedding, thinking you've found your forever, and the next, you're picking up the pieces of a shattered dream. But in those pieces, I found something unexpected. A strength I never knew I had. I won't lie and say it was easy. There were days when the betrayal felt as fresh as if it had just happened. Days when the loneliness crept in, making me wonder if I'd made the right decision. But then I'd remind myself of the truth, of Michael's infidelity, and I knew I had no other choice. The question that kept me up at night was whether I could ever trust again. Could I let someone else in, give them my heart after it had been broken so cruelly? I wrestled with this, with the fear of being vulnerable, of being hurt again. It was a barrier, an invisible wall I had built around my heart. But life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. I met someone. It wasn't anything dramatic, no love at first sight or whirlwind romance. It was simple, a gradual connection built on friendship and mutual respect. His name was Alex, and he was the complete opposite of Michael. Kind, honest, with a quiet strength that I found incredibly reassuring. With Alex, I learned that love doesn't have to be a battlefield, that it can be gentle, nurturing. He showed me what it meant to be in a relationship built on trust and honesty. It wasn't always easy. There were times when my insecurities would surface, when the scars of my past would make me doubt everything. But Alex was patient, understanding. He gave me the space to heal, to learn to trust again. As our relationship grew, I found myself opening up, letting down the walls I had built. It was terrifying, but exhilarating. With each passing day, I felt stronger, more confident in myself and in us. I realized that being vulnerable didn't mean being weak. It meant being brave, being willing to take a chance on love. But the biggest lesson I learned was about myself. I learned that I was more than my past, more than the betrayal I had experienced. I was a survivor, someone who had faced the worst kind of heartache and come out stronger on the other side. So, as I sit here now, reflecting on my journey, I can't help but feel a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons I've learned, for the strength I've found, for the chance to love again. Yes, I was betrayed by my fiancé just days before our wedding, but that betrayal led me to where I am today, happy, healed, and in love. And as for trusting another man, well, it turns out that trust isn't about guarantees or assurances. It's about taking a leap of faith, about believing in the possibility of something better. And with Alex, I'm ready to take that leap.